Welcome back to Inside Singapore's Sports Business. I'm your host Adele, and we are still here at our beautiful National Stadium at the Singapore SportsHub. This is the second ISSB episode about sports tourism and mass spectator events coming back here to Singapore. Our show is brought to you in collaboration with Sports Singapore and the Toad Board. Our guests Ling Lee and Damian are still here to share more with us, so let's get started. Here at the National Stadium to have a chat with our guests today about the future of sports events and tourism here in Singapore. So of course we have our guests. We have Ms. Ling Lee, the Director of Sports and Wellness at the Singapore Tourism Board, as well as Mr. Damian Bush, the Managing Director at Singapore SportsHub. So thank you for continuing this conversation with me. We have asked you plenty of questions in the last episode. And just to refresh our audience's memories, can you tell us a little bit about some of the biggest events, sports events that you've seen in Singapore? Maybe we'll start with...
Yeah, at the Sports Hub. So I even remember when we opened back in 2014, we had a Brazilian football game here with 50,000 plus. Juventus came over, they played a game as well in 2014. But for us, really, the sort of kind of pinnacle was the Southeast Asian Games, the 28th Games. They came over in 2015. And numbers-wise, people coming through the Sports Hub, was probably about 1.5 million people throughout the month that came here and saw and took part in the activities. So with the WTA, the Women's Tennis, the HSBC Rugby Sevens, International Champions Cup, we've hit thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that have come through. Outside of that, in the OCBC Arena, where we've had fencing championships, Silat World or Asian Championships, and even with the FINA round of swimming competitions that take place in the Aquatic Centre. So it's just been continuous, it doesn't stop.
Wow. How about yourself, Ling Lee?
For me, I would definitely say that F1 is the largest sporting event ever held in Singapore. In 2019, pre-COVID, we have the second highest attendance of 268,000 racegoers at the circuit. And over the course of the 12 years when the race was held from 2008 to 2019, we've seen and welcomed 550,000 unique foreign visitors, and 40% of our race attendees are foreigners. And for people who come fly to Singapore, with 930 million viewers that see the Singapore race over the international broadcast.
So, last episode we had a chat about how the pandemic had affected sports events and tourism in Singapore, and it ended up to be such a story of huge victories and wins and show of strength and adaptability of our sports events and tourism industry here in Singapore. So I'm sure everybody's pumped up for 2022. Would you like to share with us your outlook for the future of sports events and tourism in Singapore, 2022 and beyond?
Well, even as we speak, in March of 22, we've got the World Table Tennis Grand Smash. So we've got 120 of the top paddlers in the world here, men's and women's. That's taking place over a 2-week period. So for us, again, broadcast, we're at the front of that world sport with the International Federation at the moment. Then in a few weeks, the HSBC Rugby Sevens is ready and lined up again. It's part of the global series that takes place. So if we go back to 2019, we'd get 23 to 25,000 visitors a day. Very popular event, starts early in the morning, runs through till the end of the day. Now for the rest of the year, we're working very hard and we're still trying to close out a lot of top sporting events. If we go further into the future, we've already secured the World Floorball Women's Championships. So that's coming in 2023, towards the end of the year. And then with our partners at the Tourism Board and specifically at SportSG, we're working on lots of other properties at the moment. Some we're waiting to announce, Others will be with us soon, and I should also mention there's a Tri-Series football tournament that's coming up in the National Stadium. So that will be with Singapore, Malaysia and Philippines at the end of March 22. So immediately there's quite a bit that's taking place on the horizon. There's a lot out there that we're working on, and we're even still working on events for 2024 and 2025, but as we talked about before in the other episode, these are all part of the bid process.
How about you, Ling Lee? Is there anything you can reveal?
Well, we started the year quite well. We've got 2 international golfing events, the SMBC Singapore Open and the HSBC Women's World Championship. And in October this year, I'm very excited, and we're working really hard to bring F1 back, and we'll bring it back. And like Damian, we are working on a lot of closing off a number of interesting and very exciting events. I can tell you that there's going to be something exciting happening almost every month, but I'm not at liberty to share.
Almost every month?
Almost every month, there'll be something exciting happening. And then we're going to round off the year with the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon, which we hope, keeping our fingers and toes crossed, that we can go back to full strength by the end of this year.
I would like to know, like, what are some of the challenges personally that you guys face when trying to create such a huge event, sports event here in Singapore? Personal challenge and personal satisfaction.
I think when we start off and we're planning these events, it's always about the commercials. It does come down to what sort of support we're giving as a venue, as a country, why they should anchor their events here as well. There's a lot of competition that's out there, and we work hard within our team to try and put together the best bids to bring these sporting events here. So, collectively, as SportsHub, as the country, as Singapore, as our government partners, that's always tough. There's a lot of pressure on everybody to try and sharpen the pencil and make it the most kind of attractive package that we can. So that's tough. On a personal front, within our team as well, there's a lot of demands on us to bring in sporting events, working hard with SportsHub as well, and we're working in parallel with them. So yeah, it's quite difficult. And at the moment, with safe management measures that are currently in place, we've got to look to the future. Capacities and numbers are very important for these international concepts.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit more about what goes on behind the scene to pull off something like that, especially with the safe measures that we have to implement?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned in the previous episode One Championship and how hard we've had to work with them, and all of the protocols that have to go in place to deliver that event. And as we said before, they've been the trailblazer. If we come back to the Suzuki Cup, we had about a month's notice to put on an international football tournament. We worked very hard with the Football Association of Singapore and with the different government agencies as well to bring that about. And then suddenly, in what we still consider a pandemic period, we've got 10,000 fans in the stadium. So hours and hours and weeks of hard work. We'd like more time to lead into it, but we had to do what was placed in front of us.
What do you find particularly most satisfying about these recent events?
It's when you see all your staff coming back and you see them engaged, and then you see the public in the building, and then you hear the cheers and the roars and the goals go in. Hopefully for Singapore, we did incredibly well during the Suzuki Cup. But again, it's just hearing that noise, seeing that buzz when you go over to 1FC, and if the crowds are in there, it just makes such a difference.
Do you feel, of course, pre-pandemic, people are always excited for sporting events anyway, but do you guys notice that post-COVID, is the excitement level, is the appreciation from the audience different?
Not just from the audience, but from the staff as well. And it's just so important because it's the whole entertainment factor, what it brings together as a day. It's why people go out, it's why they spend their spare dollars in their leisure time. And of course we hope to see us getting to the stage where more people are coming in as international visitors as well, and the capacity numbers are going up higher and higher.
How about from Singapore Tourism Board? What are some of the other government agencies that you work together with to pull off these huge sports events?
First and foremost, the Ministry of Health, because they are the ones that will guide us along in terms of how do we make sure that the protocols are safe, in terms of public health, and also what's enough, what's not enough, and then especially in terms of testing protocol, in terms of control itinerary, in terms of how do we make sure that at a time where the imported cases were a lot higher than the community cases, how do we keep our workers safe? And then when it comes to the positive cases, what do we do then? Do we send them out to a public hospital, private hospital, private medical facility, etc.? So there are a lot of details that we need to iron out with them.
So pre-COVID, STB, when you run a huge event, your engagement with Ministry of Health was not this extensive.
Probably zero.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so because of COVID, we had to work out all these protocols, work out all these processes, and details like when you can keep your masks on, when you can take off your masks, and distancing, and there's a lot to be considered, a lot to be implemented, and because of the way events are, and because a lot of times these are money-paying guests, so you cannot be telling them don't stand there, don't sit there, don't talk too much. So there's also a lot of nudging, a lot of design into the experience, the consumer flow, and etc. to encourage them to be able to adhere to the different safe management measures.
Right. What about some of the challenges? Are there any challenges that you can share, or the work that goes on behind the scene that STB has had to go through in the last 2 years?
So I will put it down to the connection between the mind and the heart, and let me explain. Like what Damian said, the commercials need to work. So that's where the mind comes in. So for our purposes, we need to look at the numbers. And as a tourism board, in the current situation, we know that the tourism numbers will be badly hit. And how else can we make it work? Do we then therefore focus on marketing dollars that will be put in international markets? Then do we look at broadcast media value so that people can remember Singapore, even though they may not be able to visit, but at least it remains top of mind in terms of destination association that hey, things are happening, we're a great leisure location. And then of course, when you want world-class sporting events, you need world-class sporting personalities, and they come with a world-class price tag. So this is where all the numbers, and that's where the mind really needs to work to make sure that all these actually is worth our investment, resources, and use all time putting all these in. And the hard part comes in because we all love our sporting personalities. We all love sports in one way or another. And personally, if these two can connect and we can bring the event here, bring the personalities here, and also to boost Singapore's destination appeal, then I think that's a wonderful experience, and also something that we continue and develop.
So looking back, do you feel a lot of satisfaction for what has been achieved? Does that spur you on for?
I think over the course of the 2 years, I believe that we've done whatever we could with whatever we have, and with the kind of time that we have. And I have to say heartfelt thanks to my colleagues at the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Trade Industry, and of course WADG, as well as MCCY, because without the help of all these different colleagues from different agencies, we would not be able to pull off so many things.
Right. So your outlook for the future of sports events and tourism in Singapore is
Cautiously optimistic.
well, we have surprises lined up for us. We have Easter eggs every month, so really looking forward to that. Can you also then now maybe talk about the recent Suzuki Cup, because I attended that one and I was so excited.
So the planning stage was very short. You'd like to have a year's notice, and you'd like to be able to go on sale 4, 5, 6 months out as well. The work that went in with the Football Association and with SportsHub to understand the protocols, to really get down to the detail, it was a case of this is where you walk, this is where you move, this is your changing room, you can't use the showers, this is where you get back on the bus. So it was very tight. And the difficulty is because you've got visiting teams from other countries, is to explain to them what the rules are. They have to go through a testing process as well. They're athletes, they're international athletes. They expect to do what they want sometimes within the framework of how they'd normally train and play. And there was differences and there was changes. And then of course from what we call the front of house area, which is the spectators in the stadium behind me, that was a different experience as well for them. What was really key and magical during that whole period was how well the Singapore team played. And I think it really brought the country together. Everyone was excited, the staff were excited, just everyone, the country got behind them. And to get to the semi-finals was a huge, huge achievement for the team. But it was many, many hours. It was so much hard work to get there. And there was constant changes, thoughts, how we can do things, how it's going to change, what the impact's going to be, what's the experience for the athlete, what's the experience for the spectator, what is the appeal level. And here at the Sports Hub, we invested heavily in that event. We supported it with dollars and cents, but it's about building for the future. It wasn't about what immediately is happening. It's how can we now turn this into something better for the Football Association, for the Singapore national team, for the fans and the supporters and everybody else behind it.
Well, as a fan, as a spectator, I remember being here and then seeing across the field the opponent's team, I think it was the Thailand fans, cheering, and even that made me so happy to have an opponent to cheer against me after such a long break. But you guys don't get a breather because that was December and 2022 is going to be happening.
Yeah, as I say, we're straight into it now. There are events taking place as we speak today in March of 22 in the OCBC Arena. We've had events at the indoor stadium and there's a huge swimming competition going on in the aquatic centre. So with the Tri-Series football coming back at the end of March, things are happening. So it's all moving in the right direction. What we want to do is get back to full capacity, full food and beverage experience, full, I use the word sportainment, because that's what we are in the industry. People come out, they come here for a great time, and that's got to be on the horizon. And before we know it, there'll be other international events that will be announced, and people will want to fly in for these events.
So then, since you mentioned it, when do you think we'll be able to see full capacity in attendance and participation here at our beautiful?
Well, I can only hope as soon as possible. We're getting better, we're getting back to it. We're already at 50% capacities that are being announced. The sooner the better for us. The government's got to be cautious. There's lots of factors they're going to weigh up with the safe management measures. It's not for us to say, it's for the Ministry of Health. They're dealing with it. They can't just look at sport or entertainment as in a singularity. It's got to be wholly encompassing as to how the country responds to the pandemic.
Right. And what does the Singapore Tourism Board feel about tourism and sport tourism coming back into Singapore this year?
I think we are hopeful that it would come back in a bigger way this year as compared to the last 2 years, because those 2 years felt like false alarms. But I think what we have also observed is that over the course of the pandemic, there is an increase in the active pursuit of physical health and mental health by the world around us, and which is why we think that sports tourism as well as wellness tourism is actually going to be up and coming, and it's going to be on the horizon. Going to be here for a while, and that's why we are also putting in efforts and trying to understand this space more, as well as to drive our work with stakeholders to actually drive this piece of work together. And an example would be a Class Pass partnership that we announced last year, that we're trying to create the demand as well as the supply of the different wellness-centered experiences in Singapore.
Oh yes, please do tell us a little bit more about wellness tourism in Singapore.
Well, we see wellness as the pursuit of physical as well as mental health, emotional, spiritual as well. And we know Singapore doesn't, resonate with people when we talk about wellness, because they think of resorts in Bali, onsens in Japan, etc. But we are urban, and we are actually we have very, very accessible wellness spaces. We are a city in nature, so we do want to show that there can be accessible wellness experiences, and you can come to Singapore to actually have this holistic, wholesome experience that can actually allow you to rejuvenate, allow you to recover if you need it, and also then enjoy Singapore as a destination.
Right, and a lot of these huge, inspiring sport events, stories that come out of there encourages the wellness narrative and vice versa.
Because part of it is the active pursuit of the health.
Right, and helping people to understand, I guess from athletes, international athletes examples, that regardless, the human mental wellness is such an important part for us to achieve the things that we were made to achieve. Well, thank you both so much for sharing with us and for giving us this huge wave of excitement, much needed excitement, sharing your stories of wins. We look forward to the future of sports events here in Singapore, and we'll be watching out every single month for these secrets that the tourism board will be unveiling for us. Do you have any last words that you want to share with us?
Just watch the press. There'll be some exciting news, we hope, very soon.
That was actually my cue to try and
galvanise the country.
Hint, sneak
We're
peek.
very hopeful. We're very hopeful. So the work's been done, and we should be able to announce soon. We do hope.
Continue to enjoy sports, continue to pursue physical and mental health, and continue to come to the events.
We will. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
We end today's episode of ISSB on that note of excitement and optimism. Make sure you tune in again for our next episodes.